Moving next to the Vatican and the big headline tonight about Mother Teresa, the public imagination is that a personage so tiny should dominate the world. Mother Teresa was busy as usual saving the world, and I mean that quite literally. Mother Teresa, the heroic figure who embodies compassion and service, dedicated her life to easing the suffering of the impoverished and underprivileged. Her work garnered her international accolades, including the Nobel Peace Prize, and she became a humanitarian figure. After her demise, unexpected disclosures emerged, casting a different light on the beloved nun. Accusations of unethical medical practices, financial mismanagement, and even secret baptisms marred her legacy, generating a vigorous discussion about the genuine nature of her philanthropic efforts. Let's take a look into her life and separate fact from fiction. Early life. Mother Teresa, also known as Angeis Bojaxiou, was born on August 26, 1910, in Skopje, then part of the Ottoman Empire and today the capital of North Macedonia. She was baptized the day after she was born, and August 27 was deemed her true birthday. The youngest child of Nicol and Dranophile Bojaxiou, her father, who was prominent in Albanian community politics, passed away in 1919 when she was just 8 years old. Angeis was fascinated by stories of missionaries and their activities in Bengal from a young age. To carry Jesus as the handmaid of the Lord, the moment Jesus came into her life, by the age of 12, she felt a strong desire to devote herself to religious life. This conviction was strengthened on August 15, 1928, during a visit to the Black Madonna Shrine at Letnica. At 18, Angeis left her home to join the Sisters of Loreto at Loreto Abbey in Rathfarnham, Ireland. Her goal was to study English, the language of instruction for the Sisters of Loreto in India, with the hopes of becoming a missionary. She left her family and never saw her mother or sister again. Angeis arrived in India in 1929 and began her novitiate in Darjeeling, located in the lower Himalayas. She immersed herself in Bengali and taught at St. Teresa's School, which was close to her convent. On May 24, 1931, she made her first religious vows and chose the name Teresa in honor of Teresa of Lisieux, the patron saint of missionaries, adopting the Spanish spelling because another nun already had the French variation. Taking her solemn vows on May 14, 1937, Teresa devoted herself to the school, eventually becoming headmistress in 1944. Despite her enjoyment of teaching, she was greatly concerned about Kolkata's persistent poverty, which was aggravated by events such as the Bengal famine of 1943 and the August 1946 Direct Action Day, which ignited rioting between Muslims and Hindus. During a train ride to Darjeeling in 1946, Mother Teresa sensed a strong inner desire to help India's impoverished in Jesus' name. After obtaining permission to leave the school, she began her quest. In 1950, she formed the Missionaries of Charity, which adopted a white sari with 2 blue borders as its characteristic habit. Mother Teresa began her missionary work with the poor in 1948, wearing a modest white cotton sari with a blue border instead of her typical Loreto uniform. She accepted Indian citizenship and spent many months receiving basic medical training at Holy Family Hospital in Putna before venturing into the filthy circumstances of Kolkata slums. She started a school in Moti Jheel, Kolkata, as the first step before directly caring for the poor and hungry. You see, I always feel like this. Many years back when I picked up the first person in 1949, Mother Teresa's initiatives gained the backing of a group of young women, setting the framework for a new religious community dedicated to assisting the poorest among the poor. Her efforts quickly attracted the notice of Indian officials, including the Prime Minister. However, Mother Teresa stated in her diary that her first year was fraught with difficulties. With few resources, she resorted to begging for food and supplies. Throughout this toil, she struggled with doubt, loneliness, and the temptation to withdraw to the safe bounds of convent life. Despite these difficulties, on October 7, 1950, she received Vatican approval for the diocesan community that would eventually become the Missionaries of Charity. "No one is more unwanted than the unborn child," she once said. In her vision, this congregation would address the needs of the hungry, the naked, the homeless, the crippled, the blind, the lepers, all those people who feel unwanted, unloved, and uncared for throughout society, people who have become a burden to society and are shunned by everyone. Mother Teresa opened her first hospice in 1952 with assistance from the Kolkata government. She transformed an abandoned Hindu temple into the Kaligat home for the dying, offering solace to the poor and calling it Kaligat, the home of the pure heart. Residents were given medical care and the opportunity to leave this world with dignity. Only we have to get land for them to work. Another thing is whether you want one big thing according to their individual faiths, she once remarked. Muslims received Quranic passages, Hindus received Ganges water, and Catholics received last rites. Mother Teresa said, "It is for people who live like animals to die like angels, loved and wanted." Her love for leprosy patients led her to construct Shanti Nagar, a hospice dedicated to their care. The missionaries of charity broadened their reach by opening leprosy clinics around Kolkata, providing needed medical care, dressings, and nutrition. Concurrently, the organization began housing an increasing number of homeless children. Mother Teresa established Nirmala Shirshu Bhavan, the Children's Home of the Immaculate Heart, in 1955 to care for orphans and abandoned youth. The congregation's impact grew, resulting in new members and generous gifts. By the 1960s, the missionaries of charity had set up hospices, orphanages, and leper colonies throughout India. Mother Teresa then crossed national boundaries, establishing a mission in Venezuela in 1965, accompanied by 5 sisters. Houses were built in Italy, Tanzania, and Austria in 1968. Throughout the 1970s, the congregation expanded its influence by establishing missions and foundations in the United States as well as many other countries in Asia, Africa, and Europe. "And he says he's not so heavy, he's my brother, and I hope you will learn that," she remarked. Criticism of her charity. Despite her saintly reputation, Mother Teresa faced criticism, particularly over her missionary work and the missionaries of charity operations. One of the most common complaints leveled against Mother Teresa and her organization was their mismanagement of significant financial resources that were ostensibly set aside for charity purposes. Critics contend that despite getting generous money, they failed to provide adequate assistance to individuals in need. It is critical to emphasize that this was not just seen as volunteer activity but as divine service, with large monies dedicated to what was believed to be God's work. However, skeptics claim that despite the influx of cash, the organization's administration was weak, resulting in insufficient treatment. Reports appeared of insufficient pain relief, understaffed medical facilities, and unprepared assistants incapable of handling complex cases. Despite these charges, Mother Teresa retained a renowned image, especially among Western observers who mostly experienced her through media portrayal. Donors frequently saw their contributions as virtuous acts in God's eyes, anticipating potential spiritual advantages on Judgment Day, a concept similar to the medieval practice of indulgence. Critics like Christopher Hitchens compared Mother Teresa's acts to selling indulgences, accusing her of putting religion propagation ahead of genuine assistance to the poor. Hitchens, in particular, contended that Mother Teresa's primary goal was not to alleviate poverty but to advance Catholicism. He described an alleged interaction in which Mother Teresa claimed that her major goal was not to help the impoverished but to spread Catholic dogma. Some detractors believe that her emphasis on religious conversion diverted attention away from tackling the core causes of poverty and alleviating its related suffering, damaging her legacy by giving the impression that she prioritized evangelism over humanitarian help. Others chastised the missionaries of charity for alleged mismanagement, claiming that their facilities lacked effective governance and failed to adopt long-term poverty alleviation methods such as education and women's empowerment. A significant example of such criticism came in 2010, long after Mother Teresa's death, when a Forbes journalist visited a missionaries of charity facility and observed widespread skepticism and disillusionment among volunteers and onlookers. The report highlighted the organization's opposition to change, which resulted in tight obedience to Mother Teresa's directions, often at the price of sufficient training and procedure compliance. Despite their best intentions, volunteers apparently failed to manage the organization's financial framework and effectively use its resources, resulting in instances of neglect and inadequate care. Disturbing testimonies emerged, including examples of medical malpractice and incompetence, such as the reuse of old needles, the distribution of expired prescriptions, and the inability to provide necessary care, which resulted in preventable deaths. Despite these disclosures, Mother Teresa allegedly resisted criticism and maintained conventional techniques, preventing attempts at substantial transformation. International work. Mother Teresa's humanitarian impact stretched far beyond India's boundaries, as she was fluent in 5 languages: Bengali, Albanian, Serbian, English, and Hindi. Her linguistic diversity aided her involvement in worldwide philanthropy, helping her to navigate a variety of cultural environments. Mother Teresa set off on a painful journey with 4 of her sisters in 1971 during the turmoil of the Troubles in Belfast. Having witnessed the chaotic situations personally, she called for a continuous effort to alleviate suffering. However, her proposal sparked debate, causing unease among senior clerics who urged for missionary work abroad. Despite the positive welcome, she received. The incident revealed deep divisions within the church, sparking an argument over Mother Teresa's expanding influence. Controversy surrounding her international reputation. Mother Teresa's global acclaim was accompanied by rising criticism, particularly from detractors such as Arup Chatterjee, a Kolkata-based physician who spearheaded an effort to challenge the prevailing positive perception. Chatterjee, who had previously volunteered with the Missionaries of Charity, claimed that the organization overstated its role in combating poverty and illness in Kolkata. In his view, Mother Teresa was unjustifiably glorified as a saint-like character, when in fact, her initiatives frequently fell short of her ideals.